is Volusia Today, a public information radio program brought to you by the County of Volusia. Here is your host, Kevin Captain.
Good morning and welcome to Volusia Today. I'm Kevin Captain, the county's Community Information Director. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning. Volusia Today is sponsored by by the Daytona Beach International Airport, the Ocean Center, Volusia Recycles, and Votran Public Transportation. Today I'm joined by co-host Clayton Jackson. Good morning, Clayton.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. How's it going today?
It's going great. We have a great show today. It is Black Friday, and our guest appropriately wore something black. Good morning, Jim Judge.
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, Clayton. Good to be here this morning.
Excellent. So Jim is our Emergency Management Director for the county, and for those that know Jim, he's been working for the county a number of years, and then he retired, took a hiatus, and things were quiet when he was gone, and then he came back, and then boom, we started having these hurricanes again.
I'm to blame. I take full responsibility.
Jim, how are things right now? As far as I know, first of all, I know we're all full from a Thanksgiving meal. And we're just waiting for the end of November for the season to end. But are we out of the woods?
We pretty much are. I sure hope so, Kevin.
I hope so too.
But we're almost to the end of it here. Thank goodness. It's been it was supposed to be forecast to be a very much above average year, and we always say it only takes one. And, of course, we got two, so it's been a heck of a year for us.
Back to back like that, too.
Yes.
And it started off, too, to be, I don't want to say the Q word, but it did seem like it started off quiet because it was, I remember you were saying something about like the sub-Saharan dust was making an impact and keeping things calm.
It really was, and then we had some high-pressure areas that were keeping things way to the south. We did monitor probably close to 50 different disturbances. And quite honestly, we were looking pretty good. But then, things got pretty active pretty quick.
Yeah, I'd say, for sure.
And again, we've had two storms. We've had Ian and Nicole, and each of them were different. Do you want to touch a little bit about each storm and how they compared between each other?
Absolutely. Every tropical storm, every hurricane is going to be different, and certainly these two storms were very different. With Ian, it was a rain event and it was a wind event. We had, of course, New Smyrna Beach had 21 inches of rain. They even had a Category 2 wind gust. And while we did have 55 to 60 mile an hour sustained winds, we had very frequent hurricane force gusts. And so we had a lot of vegetative debris, we had a lot of flooding, and we had thousands of homes and businesses that were really inundated with all that water. So that was an unprecedented event for Volusia County that we would have that kind of a rain event, that kind of a wind event combined, and throughout the county. And then, of course, all the problems along the St. Johns River, from Lake Harney up to Stone Island and all the way around to Astor.
Those areas certainly took, it seems like, the biggest hit. And with Ian, I often remember you say that on the north, particularly the northeast areas of the storm is where the most dangerous weather is. But with Ian, it seemed to be more like on the northwest corner of it, and that's where all the rain came from?
That system was so big, and I'll give you an example how big it was. You could take Charlie, because it followed a similar path, but you could take Charlie, the entire storm of Charlie, and it would fit within the eye wall of Ian.
Unbelievable.
So Ian was huge. And it was, like you said, Kevin, not just on the northeast quadrant, which we're very familiar with, but it was just spread out all over.
And the way the trajectory was of the storm going through, cutting across Florida, and coming to the south of us, we were right on that area where all that rain was.
We really were. And of course, Southwest Florida, they're still, a long way in their recovery process because they got hit extremely hard. But so did we. Again, the vegetative debris, the flooding that we had, the homes, the businesses, the individuals that were so impacted and still are trying to, make their recovery efforts and finalize all that.
And I think one thing that is what I learned through this is that I learned a lot about the St. Johns River. And I learned a lot about first of all, how slow moving it is. But what's interesting, and particularly with this storm, because the storm came from the south, a lot of that water has to come up to the St. Johns anyway because it flows north.
Well, it does. And just some interesting facts. We had tremendous rainfall, terrible storms to the south of us, where, of course, Indian River County is where it begins with the St. Johns and flows north.
That's another, you used to work down there too.
I did. I worked, I was emergency manager and emergency medical chief for over 15 years. So when all that weather down to the south, and then of course we had, in the weeks preceding Ian, we had about 14 inches of rain. So we were already saturated, you know, the ditches were full. And as I traveled around the county, I just kept thinking, if we get something, it's going to be ugly because we're already full of water.
Yeah, that water. And then it just, the tributaries, you know, bring it into the St. Johns and it just creeps northward.
It
Now,
does.
did I hear you say too that there was a portion of it where when it normally would flow north, it actually couldn't flow north anymore?
That's correct. Down in Osceola County, with all the tributaries flowing in and the water being held up with a north wind, it actually began to flow to the south.
So it's like,
I don't know
like
that that's
back-
happened in our lifetime.
Wow.
So, you know, that was certainly interesting. And, you know, Osceola got hit very hard. Even Polk County had a Category 1 wind condition. So, you know, this thing certainly did a lot of damage. And it was very difficult storm for the National Weather Service. Every time I get a forecast, the first thing I look at, what is their level of confidence? And their level of confidence was never such that we really know where this is going and what it's going to do. So there was a lot of uncertainty throughout that storm until it made landfall. And then, of course, where was it going to exit? You know, was it going to be at times over Volusia County? But, of course, it came just a little bit south of us. But, you know, we all got hit pretty good.
For sure.
And again, we keep hearing time and time again that Nicole came in and devastated our community because of the impacts of Ian. Now, just hypothetically, would Nicole have caused this much devastation along our coastline if Ian would have not hit?
You know, I think we would have had damage, but, you know, Ian just opened up a lot of wounds, or so to speak, and then we got eviscerated with Nicole. And it was, you know, sort of a perfect type of a storm. We had, you know, the full moon, the high tides, and then on top of that, 12 to 14 foot of wave action. So just tremendous. So, you know, Ian came in and really cleaned out our dunes and really opened up a lot of areas and took a lot of sand away. So then when you get that kind of wave action, the full moon, the high tides, and, you know, for anybody that did go over and see that ocean, it was amazing. I mean, growing up in Florida, I've been through a lot of hurricanes, and I was, you know, impressed with what I saw. And then, of course, that pounding surf into the seawalls, pulling out the sand. And, of course, now, you know, there's still a lot to be done all along the coast, not only for Volusia, but north to Flagler, and then, of course, Brevard and even south.
You know, one of the things I thought was interesting is we heard that the storm surge was going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 6 feet, but like you mentioned, that was only really one element. You had the full moon, you had what we were describing as the wave run up, which is just the
Yes.
I mean, what's the easiest way to explain that? Because it wasn't just the storm surge. You had all these other things compounded, which probably gave us what? Double the amount.
Exactly. And you mentioned the storm surge. So we really weren't anticipating, based on the information we received from the National Weather Service, about really having much of a storm surge. And then Flagler County North was put under a storm surge watch. And then it came down to us, and then a watch, and then a warning. And then, like you said, Kevin, then we got 2 to 3 feet, not only along the coast, but then also all along the intercoastal waterway, the Halifax River. So, you know, a very, very, again, the surge, the full moon, the high tides, and we had 2 high tides, and, you know, one in the morning, one at night. And the morning high tides were actually even higher than the ones at night. And then you compound the full moon, and then again, 10, 12, 14 foot waves on top of that. And obviously it just did so much damage all along the coast. Of course, we've had the governor, you know, we've had the lieutenant governor, secretary for the Department of Environmental Protection, a lot of our federal officials and so on, you know, just evaluating and then helping us begin the recovery process.
And one thing I do want to cover real quick, and this is very important for our listeners to hear, Nicole's trajectory changed numerous times. And at one point, we actually moved out of the cone. And I remember you coming to Kevin and our community information team saying, we got to get the word out that citizens do not need to rest easy or be complacent, because on the forecast on the TV, it's showing that Volusia County is no longer in the cone. So explain a little bit about to everybody that the cone, just some people think, oh, well, we're not in the red in the cone, so we're fine. We may just get like a quarter inch of rain, we're fine. Explain.
And when I saw that we weren't in the cone, that was my fear, was that people were going to think we're out of the woods.
Right.
And we by no means were. So usually the cone is where those hurricane force winds are going to be. And of course, we knew at that point that it was going to be a catastrophic event for Volusia County. And I guess you could say with Nicole, the only good news was we didn't have the significant rainfall that we had with Ian. We had about 5 to 6 inches of rain spread throughout the county, but we had not had, any appreciable rain since Ian. So really, the ground was able to absorb that water fairly quickly. We did have a lot of flooding down around our bridges, but then especially down around Beach Street. When that 2 to 3 foot of storm surge came up along the Halifax, that water then overcame the banks. And I was actually down at Speedway by Beach Street, and it was like a tsunami as that water came over and then began to flow west of International Speedway Boulevard, but then also both north and south of Beach Street. I did see a lot of the businesses had taken appropriate precautions with sandbags and putting some visqueen and everything to be able to protect their businesses, but there was a lot of water coming in, and it certainly had an impact in that area.
And speaking of the cone, Jim, do you think because of the sometimes misunderstanding of the cone, do you think that in the future we might see maybe the National Weather Service change the way that they illustrate the storm trajectory because of the misinformation of a cone?
That's a good point, Kevin, because again, keeping the cone wider so that it encompasses a greater area certainly that can impact with those strong tropical storm force winds and then, of course, hurricane force gusts. Luckily, I think the strongest gust we had with Nicole was in Daytona Beach at 70 miles an hour. But we did have, the 45 to 55 sustained for about 12 to 13 hours. And then, of course, the 60 mile an hour wind gusts were common. Again, the highest was in Daytona Beach. But again, the good news was, Midtown and Daytona got hit so hard, as did New Smyrna Beach and others. So we were thankful that we didn't get that amount of rain, with Nicole.
Yeah, for sure. We're talking with Jim Judge. He's the Emergency Management Director for Volusia County Government. We're going to take a quick break and come back and talk a little bit more about emergency management preparation for storms. Stay with us.
I'm Will Roberts, your Volusia County tax collector. When the annual property tax bill arrives in the mail, most people want to know how much they have to pay. It's all about the bottom line of the bill. That's where you'll find the amount due. You receive a discount the earlier you pay your taxes. The discounts and the due dates also are at the bottom of the bill. For example, if you pay in full in November, you get a 4% discount. There are 2 more important items on the bill. First, make sure all of your exemptions are listed. And finally, you may pay by phone, online, or by mail. If you're paying by check, make sure it's made payable to Will Roberts, Tax Collector. If you have questions, please visit our website at vctaxcollector.org. That's vctaxcollector.org. Or call us at 386-736-5938.
Get ready, it's time for another Volusia County Fire Rescue Fire Safety Tip.
Here's some quick tips for fire safety in the kitchen. Never leave your cooking pots unattended. Have a pot lid nearby while you're cooking. If you do have a fire, never put water on it. Put your lid on, take it off the heat, turn your burner off.
Go to volusia.org and check out the virtual classroom. It's made for kids, it's awesome, very informative, and it's fun. Check it out at volusia.org.
Practicing good fire safety habits saves lives.
We're back. I'm Clayton Jackson along with Kevin Captain, and you're listening to Volusia Today, a public information program brought to you by the County of Volusia. And today we have with us Emergency Management Director Jim Judge. So Jim, as we were talking about earlier, we're now almost out of the woods. We're almost at the very end of hurricane season. However, even if no more hurricanes do arise this year, that doesn't mean that danger is still not out there, especially along our coastline. I've heard a few people mention the potential of nor'easters that could arise. So do you want to talk about the danger that still looms out there for us?
Absolutely. And I would tell you, Clayton, I called the National Weather Service yesterday and asked them to please, if there's anything coming our way with any unusually high tides or any potential nor'easters, to please let us know so that we can message that, throughout the county. They don't see that right now, which is good news, but we are getting into a different season, where we can potentially have those winter storms, those nor'easters, and then tornadoes that go along with that. So, Florida has many seasons. Hurricane season gets the most attention, but certainly we have our wildfire season, and our severe weather time frames for the year. And, and we were talking also about Nicole. And, and just to kind of go back to that for a second, Nicole was a subtropical weather event,
That's
so
right.
what the heck is that, So essentially, that type of a storm can initially happen, over anywhere in the United States, but this one happened to happen off the coast. So you get a combination of cold weather and warm weather. We had a cold front coming down, we had the warm weather collided that created this subtropical low. And then the warm weather actually won over it, and so then it began to develop those the tropical characteristics. It started to get the spin. And see, that's what's so difficult. And this was a very difficult storm also for the National Weather Service, because what you try to find is that center of circulation.
Right.
When you've just got that big glob of weather out there that's nasty, there's no center of circulation. So as the warm weather won out over the cold, and then it began to form the tropical characteristics, then we began to see the spin. Then they were able to determine center of location. And then, of course, we had a tropical storm Nicole, then Hurricane Nicole, as it made landfall down around the Vero Beach, in between Vero and Titusville. So it was quite an unusual event. But again, with Ian, with Nicole, a great deal of uncertainty on the path, the strength, and exactly what it was going to do. Of course, once it's over top of you, you got a good idea what you're facing. Mm-hmm. But then also, I would tell you that while the National Weather Service does an excellent job, we've got so many people now that are looking at so many other weather products. And, I was routinely said, well, the Weather Service says it's going to be 8 to 10 foot waves. Well, this other service says it's going to be 12 to 14 and even higher. So that's where it becomes pretty difficult to
Sure.
Stay focused, with the National Weather Service and with our partners, and in what conditions we can anticipate. So we do look at other products as well. We have Storm Geo, PC Weather products, and a number of other proprietary products that are out there. So we try to factor all that information into the conditions we can anticipate, for storms coming into Volusia County.
And Jim, you've been in emergency management your whole career, plus EMS and all the other sort of disciplines of public protection. With that history and that tenure that you've been in, have you seen the accuracy increase over the years with the spaghetti models and all the stuff that's out there?
It really has. And there are two models we look at. There's the European and the GFS. And the problem has been the GFS was to the left, the European was to the right, or vice versa. So they try to split the difference. And again, I remember tuning into the National Weather Service out of Jacksonville early one morning, and this was with Ian. And the meteorologist said this has been one of the most difficult events trying to figure out, because they know that we rely on them for the specific information, not only from the National Weather Service out of Melbourne, but since we're on the northern end of that Region 5, we also participate with Jacksonville. And it was tough for everyone to figure out where it was going to go, how bad it was going to be, and when was it going to get there. So we rely on them for that information, and then we make our decisions, and we take those protective actions based on the weather information that we receive.
Which is still, it's getting accurate. You mentioned earlier about the severe weather patterns that we see in the winter. And obviously, we're out of hurricane season, but how does that work? I mean, is it those fronts that we're going to be getting and starting to see in December, January?
You bet. We could get a cold front moving down. I remember what they called the no-name storm a number of years ago that was almost like a hurricane because it kind of caught everybody a little bit by surprise. And I was down in Indian River at that time, and the conditions were, again, just like having a Category 1 or 2 hurricane. But with those northeasters, they can be quite damaging. If you remember, we had Hurricane Irma, and Irma did quite a bit of damage. We had the conservation poles all along the beaches were taken down. We lost some sand, and so then Of course, our most wonderful coastal engineer, Jessica Fentress, and her team got those conservation poles put back up, got the beaches taken care of, and then here comes a nor'easter. And the nor'easter post-Irma actually did more damage than Irma did. So once again, we had to put all the conservation poles back up and even some of the walkovers, and that took a hit as well.
Well, for Hurricane Nicole, a mandatory evacuation was issued for certain parts of Volusia County. Just want to talk about that for a minute. Like, how bad does the projection of the storm have to be for a mandatory evacuation order to be issued? As well as, can you enlighten us a little bit about the process that goes into ordering such a mandatory evacuation?
You bet. Anytime we issue orders or we take those protective actions, it's done in a very serious environment. We have what we call our Manager's Advisory Group, which is our county manager, our county chair, the sheriff, school superintendent. Many of those individuals are brought together to discuss the conditions we can anticipate. So with that, with Ian, it was basically a voluntary evacuation. We certainly, with you all messaged out, the conditions we can anticipate. But again, it was one of those situations where, the forecast didn't call for the substantial rain and that we got until literally not long before landfall. But then with the damage we sustained along the coast with Ian, then of course we knew that with Nicole coming in and with the conditions that we could anticipate, it was going to be bad. So out of an abundance of caution, we put a mandatory evacuation in for east of A1A, for all along the coast, low-lying areas, RV, mobile home parks, anybody who felt that their structure may be unsafe. But certainly for those people along the beaches, because we know that there were homes that could potentially be lost into the ocean. There were condos, as we well know, that were in danger. So out of an abundance of caution, we issued that mandatory evacuation to let people know that we're very concerned about your welfare, about the potential for loss of life. And so that way we put that out for entire Volusia County, again, all east of A1A, and in other areas that were low-lying. We did have 4 shelters open, and a homeless shelter also open for Ian, and then we also had multiple shelters opened for Nicole. So, always looking to err on the side of caution and safety and make sure that we have those provisions. The school district did an incredible job once again for us. Health department, once again, with our special needs sheltering. So, it's all about teamwork, and we've got a heck of a team here in Volusia County, and of course, all the work that's now being done along the beaches with Jessica Fentress, Ben Bartlett, Clay Irvin, all the folks over there that are working hard with the residents to be able to get things back and get our beaches back to normal, and it's going to take some time.
They absolutely are one great team for sure, Jim. We're talking with Jim Judge. He's the Emergency Management Director for Volusia County. We'll take our last break and come back and learn a little bit more about where you can get more information on storm safety and emergency management issues. Stay with us.
I'm Will Roberts, your Volusia County tax collector. Paying your annual property taxes in one lump sum may not be easy for everyone. The good news is that you have another option. If it's easier for you to divide your tax bill into 4 quarterly payments, you should consider signing up for the quarterly installment plan, but you must sign up by April 30th. Once you are on the plan, your payments will be due in June, September, December, and March. We will send you a bill each quarter as a reminder to make a payment. Again, the deadline to sign up to pay in installments for the tax year is April 30th. The application to sign up and more information is on our website at vctaxcollector.org/taxes. That's vctaxcollector.org/taxes.
Get ready, it's time for another Volusia County Fire Rescue Fire Safety Tip.
Another good tip for the kitchen is safety for the children. We want to create a 3-foot zone of safety around the stovetop so that children can't access and get burned.
Go to volusia.org and check out the virtual classroom. It's made for kids, it's awesome, very informative, and it's fun. Check it out at volusia.org.
Practicing good fire safety habits saves lives.
Subscribe to the Volusia County YouTube channel.
Let's go!
There are so many great places to explore.
And things to learn.
We have countless features showcasing history, nature, wildlife, and recreation. Subscribe and hit the bell icon.
Go ahead, subscribe.
But that's not it. There's more. Subscribe and hit the bell icon and fully explore.
Score!
You can access Volusia County government online at volusia.org. Listen to county council meetings, pay for permits or tags, or search the property appraisers' databases. Volusia.org is your Volusia County government information resource.
Welcome back to Volusia Today. I'm Kevin Captain. I'm with Clayton Jackson, and our guest today is Jim Judge, the Emergency Management Director. Jim, where can people find information about storms, about plans, about anything emergency management?
Well, a number of years ago, we put together an app. So it's our emergency management app. We get real-time weather information. There's checklists, a wealth of information. We actually won a National Association of Counties award for that. And what really put a smile on my face was when we had our intergovernmental affairs lady from Maria from FEMA.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember when she even sent out information about how valuable that app was as she moved around the county, meeting with people, meeting with elected officials, and then also with our disaster survivor assistance teams. They found that app to be extremely valuable. But of course, Kevin, as you know, our Facebook page, and I'll let you read off all the other ones.
It definitely
There's a bunch
is.
of them.
It's Volusia County Emergency Management Facebook and County of Volusia County of Volusia Facebook. But we've also got Twitter, Instagram, and lots of good videos on YouTube. And we've also got, we used to have a thing called Code Red. Now it's called Everbridge. Tell us about that.
Everbridge is our mass notification system, and we did use Everbridge a number of times at both Ian and especially Nicole. We did message all along the St. Johns River as we saw the water levels begin to rise into, especially with Ian, in unprecedented levels. And so we wanted to get the word out every way we could. We even messaged the entire county. So you can go to our volusia.org /emergency, I believe. Kevin,
yes,
am I right?
It is. You are right, Jim.
To make sure that you're registered with Everbridge, because if you didn't get an alert through either one of those storms, you may want to call Everbridge. The phone numbers and information is in there so that you can register your phones so that you get those important. Because when we launch Everbridge, it's not done, on a sunny day. It's done because conditions are very serious.
Yeah, it's gray sky. So we got less than 2 minutes left, Jim. Did you go to Home Depot to get in line
I've been
there
shopping,
for Black
getting
Friday?
ready for Christmas. Like, what happened to the 4th of July? I mean, it's just, we've been, of course, very busy, but we've been very busy throughout the year with the Department of Public Protection, with all of our preparations for the hurricane season, and then certainly, 43 days in between Ian and Nicole. But, it is that time of the year that it's a good opportunity to say, it's Thanksgiving holiday, and it's a good time to count your blessings. I'm pretty much an optimistic guy, and no matter how bad things are, when you have a bad day, you can sit back and just, thank the good Lord for all the things we do have, and all the wonderful things in our lives. I know a lot of people have suffered through both of these storms, and we still have a ways to go. But still, there's still an awful lot of things to be thankful for.
Well, thanks so much, Jim, for being on the show today. With that, we'll close Volusia Today. Thanks for listening. Take care, stay safe, and help your neighbors.
If you have a comment about Volusia Today, or if there is a topic you would like to hear featured, please contact Volusia County Community Information at 1-866-345-0345.